Question number 3, James Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Revenue. As it turns out, will he follow the lead of the Australian government and introduce new measures in the upcoming budget to ensure multinational corporations pay their fair share of tax?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Michael Woodhouse.
Mr. Speaker, while the details of Australia's measures are still being analysed, New Zealand doesn't need to wait for Budget 2016 to implement multinational tax avoidance initiatives, because we already have an ongoing BEPS program. We've implemented a number of initiatives, such as strengthening the thin capitalisation and non-resident withholding tax rules and introducing GST on cross-border services and intangibles. Our tax policy work program includes a number of measures that are actively being developed and should be implemented within the next 12 months.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, James Shaw.
How many additional staff will Inland Revenue get to work on tax avoidance in this year's budget, given that they currently don't have enough resources to work on reforming foreign trust regulation?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Michael Woodhouse.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as to the second part of that question, it's not a matter of having enough resources. Tax policy is like drinking from a fire hose. There is always more than we can do. Last year, in Budget 2015, we put a significant amount of resource into the IRD to do just this work and other domestic tax avoidance measures, and they're paying very strong dividends.
Supplementary question, James Shaw.
Does he stand by his statement on TV yesterday that when his office went to Inland Revenue and said, of your current program of work, which projects would you drop in order to fit in a review of foreign trust regulation, they came back and said none?
The Honourable Michael Woodhouse.
Mr. Yes, and in particular the prefacing comment to that, which was that the IRD have an obligation to make sure that its focus is on things that maintain and increase the New Zealand tax base. The Foreign Trust Review would not have done that, and it was in that context that the previous minister asked what they would be prepared to drop, those things that would enhance the New Zealand tax base, and they said none.
Supplementary question, James Shaw.
Does he stand by his statement, quote, if you're asking me if New Zealand is missing out somehow, I've seen no information to suggest that this is the case, end quote, given tax expert Professor Craig Elif estimates New Zealand is losing $1 billion a year from multinational tax avoidance?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Michael Woodhouse.
Well, Mr. Speaker, yes, I do, because I also then went on to say that we will be continuing to turn over every stone to ensure that anti-avoidance provisions are being followed, and working in concert with the OECD, they will be enhanced. As for Mr. Elif's estimate, it was simply that, a finger in the air with no foundation in reality.
Mr. Speaker, I seek leave to table the OECD transfer pricing guidelines for multinational enterprises and tax administrations report, first published in 1979.
On the basis that it was some time ago, I will put the leave sought to table that OECD report. Is there any objection to it being tabled? There is none. It can be tabled.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary question, James Shaw.
Given that the OECD has been working on addressing multinational tax avoidance since 1979, what year does he expect them to complete their work and for New Zealand to start taking action?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Michael Woodhouse.
Mr. Speaker, I reject the implication in the question that New Zealand is not taking any action. As I say, tax policy work is an ongoing stream of work that we'll continue to do. We're working very closely with the OECD, and I expect there to be much more to be done over the next 12 months.
Supplementary question, James Shaw.
Why is tax avoidance the one area where we're not trying to harmonise our regulations with Australia?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Michael Woodhouse.
Well, Mr. Speaker, largely the issue of harmony is, I would reverse the comment. It is Australia that is now potentially out of step with the rest of the world by its announcement on the diverted profits tax regime. Now, I haven't seen any comments on Australia's announcement, But when the United Kingdom did the same thing late last year, the OECD a directive for the Centre for Tax Policy said that unilateral actions are not exactly in the sense of what the OECD is trying to do. Unilateral measures are not that great when you're negotiating a multilateral package.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, James Shaw.
What does he have to say to New Zealand businesses who continue to pay their fair share of tax after Budget 2016, while multinational companies who are operating here will continue to be allowed to avoid them?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Michael Woodhouse.
Mr. Speaker, no taxpayer is allowed to illegally avoid the payment of their tax obligations. We are continuing to make sure that the transfer pricing rules, the thin cap rules and other measures to avoid multilateral tax avoidance are being followed. But as the Minister of Finance repeatedly says, to the extent that these companies are not paying tax in New Zealand, they are not paying tax anywhere in the world. This is a global problem that requires a global solution.
Question number 4.